Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Susan Welton, Senior Marketing Manager at Perficient, and I'm excited to be hosting today's webinar, Perficient's Own Journey to Oracle ERP and HCM Cloud. Time permitting, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the event, so please type your questions into the Q&A tab located to the right of your screen, and feel free to do that at any time. Two questions often come up with our online events. Can I get a copy of the link to the recording and a copy of the slides after today's event? The answer to both questions is yes. We will definitely email you with information on how to access both the slides and the recording following today's event. Without further delay, it's my honor to introduce today's speakers who hold key leadership roles at Perficient. Paul Martin was appointed Chief Financial Officer at Perficient in August 2006. He is a senior financial executive with 25 years of finance and accounting experience. Andrea Lampert is Vice President of People, responsible for working across the company to support business goals by driving the implementation of strategic people objectives, reflecting Perficient's commitment to our people and our culture. Susan Adamite is Vice President and Controller, responsible for accounting and reporting functions at Perficient. Matt Mikowski is Director at Perficient and runs the ERP Cloud practice. He has more than 20 years of experience in Oracle financial applications, which includes large-scale global full-cycle implementations across several industries and countries. Holly Higgins-Smith has more than 20 years of practitioner experience in global HR, benefits, and compensation management. Her HCM Cloud implementation experience began 9 years ago as a client going through her own organization's implementation. And finally, Stuart Massey. Stuart leads our ERP practice at Perficient and works with his leadership team to set the strategy for the practice and is involved in oversight of key accounts. He started his career as a hands-on EBS consultant and has more than 22 years of experience with Oracle ERP. Stuart is acting as moderator for today's event, so I'd like to hand it over to him now to take us through today's agenda and share some background on Perficient. So Stuart, take it away.
Thank you, Susan. Hello, everyone. It's good to see some familiar faces from Oracle and customers on the call. Thank you so much for joining. In terms of the agenda today, we'll spend a few minutes up front to introduce our company and practice. We'll then go through the guiding principles and then a case for Oracle Cloud. And I believe this is the most valuable part of the presentation today because we will discuss, the business benefits that we're going to achieve by migrating from Oracle E-Business Suite to the Oracle Cloud. And we'll also talk about the principles that are guiding our current implementation. We'll then talk about the end-to-end solution, which will cover our scope, roadmap, methodology, including some non-Oracle platforms that we're implementing for an integrated solution with Oracle Cloud, including bank connectivity and tax. I do want to touch on our speed to value program, which is a very important upfront evaluation that we provide our clients to address the feasibility of a customer moving to the cloud. Number two, the business value that a customer can gain by moving to the cloud, and then what are their roadmap options. And then as Susan mentioned, we'll spare some time towards the end of the presentation to open it up for any questions. So a little bit about Perficient. We are a global digital agency. Today's presentation obviously is in regards to Oracle, but we support many other vendors and platforms. We were founded in 1997. We are publicly traded on the NASDAQ under the symbol PRFT. If you look at 2022, we're forecasting about $920 million. We're on a very strong growth path right now related to our organic growth and acquisitions, which I'll touch on during this presentation. We have about 40 global locations, which I'll also discuss here shortly. We've got close to 6,500 to 7,000 colleagues, but that is growing drastically year over year. Probably the one metric that we're most proud of is that we have a 90% repeat business rate. So that means 9 customers out of 10 after a first project continues to use us in additional capacities. In terms of our global delivery, from a US perspective, I like to say we're in most of the NFL cities, so to speak. We're also in Europe, India, and China. We have very large global delivery centers in both India and China. The Oracle Business Unit leverages our India Global Delivery Center. That's based out of Chennai primarily, and those are Perficient owned. We are in Latin America, which is a very focal point right now for acquisitions, so we can expand nearshore capacity as well as expand certain skill sets and technologies. I should point out that all of the countries on this map right here are included in our Oracle Cloud ERP implementation. In terms of our business unit, we started 22 years ago in service. Our legacy background is around the Oracle e-business suite, although we do have some peripheral practices around tax and technology, which I'll touch on a little bit later. About 90% of our business today is on projects associated with migrations from on-premise solutions, whether they be Oracle or non-Oracle, to the Oracle Cloud. And we'll discuss this a little bit later on a later slide. I will point out, though, the work we're doing these days when going from on-prem to the cloud is very transformational in nature, right? Where our clients aren't just migrating to the cloud because they want to adopt the latest and greatest platform and the latest and greatest user interface. We are truly modernizing and standardizing their business processes. In terms of our business unit, we do serve all pillars of ERP, which is, the core finance and accounting, referred to as ERP in the cloud, supply chain management, human capital management. We also have an EPM practice, an analytics practice, and we also are a certified Oracle training center to where we can actually teach Oracle curriculum to our customers. We've also been recognized by both Gartner and Forrester in the recent publications as top service providers in the Oracle space. And now I'll turn it over to Holly to give you an update on our Oracle Cloud HCM practice.
Stuart. Yeah, we are organically growing our HCM practice. We have a huge focus right now around this growth, very much in depth on what the skills and strengths each of our team members brings to this practice. It's not just cloud consulting, obviously, that is our focus. We're also very heavily invested in making sure that each of those team members brings quite a bit of HR practitioner background as well. This is huge for me. This is a huge part of my own background, and I expect the same in my team because that makes us a very great partner with our HR clients. We've sat in your shoes. We have understood what you are going through in your day-to-day jobs, not outside of this, this transformation that you're going through in terms of these implementations. So I just wanted to make sure that we highlighted that. That's a big part. It's not always the case with a lot of other vendors out there. And this is how I've kind of grown up in the cloud HCM space. And so on that note, with people in mind in our HCM world, I'd like to pass this over to Andrea Lampert, who's our VP of People, and she'll talk to us about our guiding principles for this project.
Thank you, Holly, and hello, everyone. It's nice to be here today. As we began thinking about our journey at Perficient to the cloud, we knew that it begins with guiding principles. Guiding principles are key to having an agile strategy. So for us, as we thought about guiding principles, and as we use these every day of this project, these are really guidelines for decision making, and they also give us the focus that we need to ultimately achieve both impact and outcomes that work for our business. We've been very intentional about our decisions from the start. Out-of-the-box functionality is there for a reason. It's based on best practices, so we choose to be intentional about starting there. As a growing organization, excuse me, we're also thinking about how we continue to create flexible and scalable systems and processes that can grow with us. Stuart mentioned earlier how we are modernizing and standardizing business processes in our Oracle practice with our clients. That's really key for us at Perficient as well. And we're growing globally. So while there may be unique processes and practices in specific countries, it's important to look to best practices to ensure that we're creating a framework and standards that make sense around the globe. And my personal favorite, thinking about the user experience, be simple and intuitive. It's been really exciting to take a walk in our employees' shoes, push on what would make our employees' lives easier as they interact with our company and with our systems. So we've been relying on these guiding principles from the start, and they've definitely helped us to stay focused and create the best path forward. That's about how our journey begins, and it's about everything we reflect on as we go through this journey and being really planful in our approach. Now I'll turn it to Matt Makowski to talk about our case specifically for Oracle Cloud.
All right, thank you very much, Andrea. Tough act to follow as always. So Andrea's laid out great guidelines for our project, and now we're going to kind of turn to a conversation of not just why just cloud, but why specifically Oracle Cloud? It really is the only end-to-end SaaS solution ranging from ERP through HCM and EPM and customer experience. So when you look at, we've kind of brought it down to 5 themes, right? The product is robust and scalable. It has S-based technology. It serves as a single source of truth. It is SOX compliant out of the box, and it optimizes our employee experience. I'm going to have our leaders talk to each one of these. Right? We're going to ask them to chime in here. But first, I'd like to turn it over to Paul Martin, our CFO, to speak to his perspectives on, from a strategic position, why Perficient's taking the direction with Oracle Cloud.
Great. Welcome, everyone. Moving to cloud really removes our dependency on managing our own hardware, networking, and infrastructure, leaving that with experts who can provide better and more comprehensive service at lower cost. And as a CFO at Perficient, I have both finance as well as the internal IT, so certainly turning that over is going to simplify our life and is going to be a nice strategic advantage. It also keeps our applications current and modern, and keeping our business up to date with the latest improvements on a quarterly basis. We don't have to wait years between upgrades. As a result, the customizations that will be outdated by the time an upgrade is completed. So that's a real plus. Moving to cloud reduces long-term acquisition costs, being able to move quickly as we migrate acquired organizations, and Perficient typically does 2 to 3 acquisitions a year into our global business process. So that's going to make that process much more efficient. Moving to cloud is also going to allow us to enable mobile applications far easier than with our on-prem systems. Mobile expenses, time entry, mobile approvals have historically been problematic, and we're going to address that as we move to the cloud, because that functionality is available straight out of the box. Matt?
Great. Hey, thanks, Paul. Great perspective there. So let's turn it now into the 5 themes here. Let's drill down on robust and scalable. Susan, can you tell us your thoughts about the product from your perspective as VP of Finance and your experiences and what you're seeing now that you've been live? Your group has actually been live on the product for 3 months. You've just closed out your first full quarter for a public company that's going to announce earnings in a few weeks. Can you tell us about the types of things that you see that impress you?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. You're right. We just closed the books for the 3rd time in the cloud, and feedback from my team is overwhelmingly positive. It reduces the number of clicks and processing steps, and even more so, being global. Previously in EBS, our ledgers were kind of in separate modules. You would have to, click out of US and then go into the India ledger, do, whatever transactions you needed to do, then go back into the US ledger and back and forth, and that is eliminated, and they are thrilled. In addition, as we are kind of still in the process, we're live with GL. We're not live with all of our functions. So we're utilizing Accounting Hub in order to bring all those sub ledgers in to have one kind of single source. So it helps with reconciliations. Your team helped us build some wonderful tools to make sure that our AP reconciled. Same thing with our projects module, and it's really going great. In addition, when we go live with AP, we expect to see, we will see smoother approvals of those AP invoices versus email. It's all going to be within the tool, as well as there's an intelligent data recognition functionality that we're very much looking forward to utilizing.
Great. So Susan, there's one other aspect of the implementation that right now we're kind of in between EBS and cloud. We have a roadmap that's taking us to HCM and projects down the road. Can you tell me about how we're using Accounting Hub in that while we're phasing through? What value is Accounting Hub providing to the company at this moment?
Accounting Hub is the central source where the subledgers are pulling their data into Accounting Hub. So we're able to, without having to, if I can say this clearly here, drill back we don't have to log out, get into EBS to look at accounts payable transactions. Those are in Accounting Hub. So they're easier. They can see the transactions in accounts payable in Accounting Hub, or cash transactions from the Treasury module, as well as projects. We live and breathe by our projects module. It is where revenue is recorded, and that's been very helpful.
Great. Hey, thanks. Appreciate that explanation about Accounting Hub. And just for people kind of listening into this, Accounting Hub does provide that. If you're not ready to go to the cloud, everything all at one time, Accounting Hub can provide that unique link from Fusion Cloud into your on-premise system, whether it's EBS or PeopleSoft or JD Edwards or even QuickBooks for that matter. It doesn't really matter. It links those two environments together, so it creates that one-stop shop of all of your account analysis. So Susan, can you tell me a little bit more about F-Space and how that is helping, how that's kind of transformed the business, the financial reporting, et cetera?
Absolutely. I think this is singularly the most exciting thing for my accounting team. Previously, FSGs are a little on the clunkier side. With the new FRCs, which isn't necessarily an F-Space, but FRCs have been game changing, as well as previously we would run a number of FSGs from different ledgers, meaning our budgets, our actuals, and do a lot of Excel work to merge it all together. And with SmartView, that's underlying, has an underlying tool of F-Space, it's all click of a button. There was, a little bit of time to build out the reports, but once we close the month, or even during month-end close, you're able to refresh those reports and look at real-time results.
Great. So Susan, we're going to give you a moment to take a breath there. We're going to switch over to Andrea. And Andrea, can you talk to us a little bit about your perspective of the single source of truth, that third theme?
Sure, absolutely. Happy to. And I'm pretty excited about a single source of truth, quite honestly. So a single source of truth means that our data sources are up to date and they're relevant to business decisions. So we can access timely data values at the right moment. I think later in this presentation, as we talk about some of the challenges we face, this is a really, really key point for us. Because now we can say one place, one time, and that data that gets entered one place, one time flows across our organization. So it helps us to just eliminate errors along the way from multiple points of data entry. The quality and the integrity of our data then gets to prevail, and it helps us to really make decisions better about our business and our people. It gives us stronger reporting capabilities. HR and finance are connected. And even within HR, an example of that, our core HR and our recruiting being connected helps us do things like report all from one place instead of from two disconnected systems, which ultimately really helps us identify opportunities to make decisions for our business.
Right. And as I'm looking through the themes here, I'm seeing we actually have number 5 is the optimized employee experience, and I was going to go back to Susan and talk about or ask about SOX compliance. But is there? It sounds like having that single source of truth lends itself into the optimized employee experience. Is there anything else you want to add about number 5, the optimized employee experience? Anything not mentioned before?
Sure. I could talk all day about an optimized employee experience, right? At Perficient, we take pride in the fact that we're a people-centric organization. And I mentioned earlier how we're always walking in our employees' shoes to think about the best way to design solutions. So when we think about the moments that matter for our employees and we want to make the employee experience frictionless and meaningful, so that the everyday tasks become very simple, intuitive, and easy, and then the people of our organization can focus on doing their best work. That's an optimized employee experience. Easier for our employees to find what they need, easier for managers to do their work. And it's really a key to helping our workforce have one place to go for all of their important activities.
Great, thanks, Andrea. Let's give you a moment now and go back to Susan for Susan probably had a glass of water on SOX compliance, number 4, that theme. Why is that so important, and does that tie into SOC compliance, SOC compliance? Do those two kind of tie in hand, and how do you view number 4 in terms of the importance of cloud here?
Sure. As Stuart mentioned earlier, we are a publicly traded company. So with that is additional auditor scrutiny. We have public auditors of our internal control structure. So having that built out where they can easily audit approval routing, journal entry routing, as well as revenue routing and revenue recognition policies, and that they can rely on how it's designed within the system, saves audit time, which in the end saves audit money. They are so that the SOX compliance processes are easily audited within the tool. But in addition, Oracle Cloud is SOC 1 and SOC 2 compliant. So if you're a publicly traded company, you know what those things mean. It means that the auditors can rely that there are controls inherent and security inherent within the tool that can be relied upon.
Great. Thank you very much, Susan. So what I'd like to do now is turn it back to Stuart Massey to talk about the next slide.
Thank you, Matt. So about a year ago, when we started to evaluate, a migration to Oracle Cloud, it really did start with kind of a current state assessment around, our current Oracle E-Business Suite. And really the focal point was not just on retiring, as Paul said, traditional maintenance, software, servers, hardware, infrastructure support. It was very much focused on where are the transformational opportunities in this project. And let's take a look at kind of the current state. Let's take a look at the things that aren't working well for us from a systems perspective. And we put those pain points into 3 buckets. Number 1, the poor employee experience, which Andrea just kind of mentioned, the poor business experience, and then the ongoing EBS maintenance. So when we look at the poor employee experience, as probably many of you guys know on this call, running on-prem solutions that have probably been around for 20, 30 years, they're very clunky, right? The user interface are very difficult to navigate. They're just not very intuitive. So we found that was having a big impact on our large ERP community, especially considering that the majority of our employees, the vast majority, I should say, in some way touch our ERP systems, which I'll speak to here shortly. Another pain point around the employee experience is that we had multiple non-integrated systems. We run Concur today. We have a recruiting solution called iSIMS and a whole host of other platforms. So, employees and users going from one system to the other wasn't very consistent. So just overall, the experience, between those inconsistent platforms and processes was a challenge. And then we also had very large limitations around self-service reporting. And again, being an organization, a professional service organization where pretty much all of our employees in some way touch our platform, whether it be time entry, expense entry, self-service HR, we had very limited reporting around that. So this was by far a very big pain point for us, with our current state EBS environment. My first question along this lines is for Andrea, who's obviously our HR leader, and her focal point is, as she's mentioned, largely on our people experience. Andrea, can you elaborate a little bit on some of the challenges with our current systems as it pertains to, employee experience?
Sure, absolutely. The word clunky on the slide has got to be one of my favorite words when we talk about challenges. It really is the best word to describe our current challenges. We're not mobile and optimized. So things like entering time, it's a very clunky process, right? So there's a phrase that I use often about experience. People want their 9 to 5 to be like their 5 to 9. And if you think about that, we do everything on our phones these days. And when we get home from our workday, we can do things like order dinner, buy new clothes, whatever it is that you want to do in about a minute with a couple of clicks. And our work days really should be just as easy. So exciting to lean into our guiding principle of simple and intuitive and really bring that to life. Another thing I say often around Perficient is it seems like every time we do something, it's like the first time we do it. So it's really hard to be flexible and scalable in a growth environment when that's the case. So we have an opportunity to influence a positive and consistent employee experience.
Thank you, Andrea. And I've never heard the 9 to 5, 5 to 9 analogy, but I'm definitely going to use that again.
That's a great line.
That is great. Yeah, it is. So I would say on this bucket, I believe the user experience will be one of the largest metrics for us, the implementation team, to be judged, because, again, we have 7,000 plus employees. The majority of them touch the system in some way, whether it be time entry, expense reporting, self-service HR. I mean, I envision, this user coming in on the Monday morning that we go live and seeing their instant reaction to a much more modern, more intuitive interface, right? So I think the feedback from that community the day that we go live is really going to dictate, or partially dictate, the success of our project. I think mobile also comes into play there too. That's something that we can't lose sight of. With the cloud, with the cloud, Oracle Cloud Platform, we get to introduce a lot more mobile, for all of the employees. So the second bucket, poor business experience, as I'm sure you guys experienced today on-premise solutions, there's still a lot of multiple manual steps, especially as it pertains to monthly, quarterly close and annual reporting. As we mentioned earlier, we're a very fast-growing organization, both organically and through acquisition. So our inability to scale our current processes and our current platforms is very painful and costly. We'll touch on this a little bit later. Our EBS environment is highly customized. When we make an acquisition or need to bring on a new geography into the platform, it takes time and money to do that. So for a variety of reasons, our Oracle Cloud Platform will be much more scalable as Perficient grows. And then just a lot of inefficiencies around manual workarounds, the inability to automate certain processes and so forth. A lot of this pertains to Susan Adamite's group, with finance and accounting. So Susan, I'll pose this question to you. First of all, how do you envision managing the quarterly update process? And can you give us some examples of processes that today are manual that we're going to be focusing on in terms of automation?
Sure, thanks, Stuart. First, you mentioned this a couple times, but I want to put it in terms of real numbers. So when we started down the path of moving into the cloud, we had about 10 legal entities, including a couple ELIM companies. Thanks to some acquisitions late in 2021, we now have 25 different legal entity ledgers. And we've been able to walk straight into the cloud, with that. Now, not all of our legal entities are operating, but the ones who are, we're still bringing in some ledgers, but that's part of a future phase to walk away from that. But the ones who are love Oracle Cloud. Our colleagues in India and China have very, very favorable feedback on this. Now, as specific to your question on how are we doing and how do we plan to do the quarterly update process, that's really going to be managed by our IT group. They'll be the ones dealing with the daily systematic issues and planning and coordinating additional functionality that we'll step into through the process. And then they'll also manage the quarterly update process. Now, as far as processes that were very manual that are now more automated, I can point to one very specific, which is our journal entry approval process. In EBS, for whatever reason, we printed out every single journal entry with the support and physically signed off on those journal entries. It was obviously I mentioned our auditors. There was an auditor control point too, that, journal entries are approved appropriately. That was 100% manual. We had so much stacks of paper and coordinating. So you can only imagine how that changed and how we had to quickly pivot when we all, walked out of our offices in March of 2020. But our implementation into the cloud, we've completely automated that. It has been absolutely fantastic, and the team is just thrilled. As well as it's much quicker. The approval process is much quicker than it was.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, and I'll say, on all of our projects, our customer client projects, where we're migrating from on-prem solutions to cloud, there's always a goal around automation, and there's a lot more automation available with the cloud platform. This obviously allows us to scale faster as we grow and make acquisitions. It allows us to be efficient with our headcount additions because we have processes that are automated. The third bucket that I want to touch on today is the ongoing EBS maintenance. Susan mentioned, upgrades, patches, support. The one unique thing about cloud is that you do get quarterly updates, which is a very good thing. And when I say updates, I'm not talking about the upgrades that you guys are used to with on-premise solution that takes months, if not years, and costs a lot of money, right, around Oracle E-Business Suite and so forth and other platforms. The benefit of getting the quarterly updates from Oracle is that you will get additional features, functionality, and things of that nature that you can then deploy as part of your solution. There is a process there to evaluate those functions and functionality, but it's a very positive thing. All of our projects have an element of decustomization. As everyone on this call knows, traditionally, 20, 30 years ago, when you implemented your Oracle on-prem solutions, there was heavy customizations, typically. I mean, we have very, very few clients that I would say have moderate levels of customizations. In this day and age, it's all about adopting out-of-the-box best practices, avoiding customizations. We want to make those update processes as easy as possible, and you want to be leveraging what the solution offers out of the box in terms of business processes. The other key point, I think, in this bucket is the fact that Oracle does have a limited on-premise investment, as I'm sure all of you know. However, they're investing on average $6 billion of R&D into the cloud platform, and I can tell you that's very evident by the new features, functionality that comes out each quarter within the platform. On this note, Susan, just pass on the question to you. Can you talk a little bit about how we're able to move away from the 200 plus customizations that we have today in our Oracle EBS environment?
Sure. As we think about the different modules, by far our most customization is within our projects module. We are a professional services organization and utilize the project module for project management, as well as revenue recognition. When it comes to our other modules, the HCM modules, accounts payable, accounts receivable, treasury, fixed assets, we've been very focused on out of the box. What is functionality that came with it? Can we standardize to this to remove a lot of those customizations? And for the most part, we have, and Andrea can speak to this too if she wants to hop in. Projects we're working toward. It's definitely an evolution and a journey. Nothing happens overnight, but we are seeing definite changes there, especially in terms of project setup and how we manage approvals for projects.
Thanks, Susan. Great point. And I think, along these lines, when you look at some of these transformational type opportunities and you look at decustomizing and maybe, refining your processes to avoid customization, obviously there's a change management aspect to this. That's a very important path on these projects, to have a formal change management program around this to make sure that we're ensuring adoption from the user community, from the business community, and so forth. The other thing I'll point out too on this bucket is that we talk about decustomization, but there's a perception out there sometimes with clients that you cannot extend the cloud, and that is a false perception. Pretty much all of our cloud implementations require some sort of extension, I'll call it, not customization per se, but extension. It may be an industry-specific requirement, it may be something very unique to a business model that we have to accommodate, and there are ways to accommodate that within Oracle Cloud. On that note, I'm going to pass this to Matt Makowski, and he's going to talk a little bit about the single platform that Oracle has to offer.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Stuart, and thanks, Susan and Andrea, for that slide. So as we've talked about everything, we really haven't spoken about what we're actually implementing, but I just want to kind of reiterate and summarize. We've talked about eliminating all those pain points. We've talked about the 5 themes of why Oracle Cloud, right? The robustness, the S-based technology, having a single source of truth, SOX compliance, and an optimized user experience. And ultimately, it all comes down to this, right? We have 4 pillars that we are implementing in the now, and 3 pillars now and 1 in the near future. In Oracle Cloud ERP, what we're implementing there is general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, intelligent data recognition, which goes hand in hand with accounts payable, cloud expenses, project accounting, and the accounting hub. It's worth mentioning, as I think we said before, that we are live with General Ledger and with Accounting Hub that we've just completed our first quarter end, and we'll be reporting results on that in the near future. From Oracle Supply Chain, Oracle Cloud SCM, we are implementing procurement for both direct and indirect spend. And what's unique for us, for a professional services organization, I should say, is in that direct spend, we have a certain amount of subcontractors, we call sub-Ks in the industry, that have to go through procurement. So we use procurement not just for like SG&A type spend and ordering computers and things of that nature, but also for procuring some of our resources for some of our projects, right? And that has to go through procurement. So there's all kinds of things that come along with that to make that work just properly. So with those two pillars, that kind of brings us the full financial suite, all the integrated accounting, and makes a common user experience, especially as it pertains to the daily entry of transactions and that month-end cohesiveness, reconciling all the data. What I'd like to do now is just turn it back to Holly for a moment to talk about the HCM pillar.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, our HCM pillar is quite packed. It's going to be a pretty grand scale across the globe. Current state, we've got core HR going in, payroll integration to ADP, recruiting and onboarding, benefits, compensation, absence, and time and labor. The key points there, obviously, people are our business, right? So the recruiting and onboarding piece coming under and connected with our single source of truth for HR will help speed up and make more accurate our onboarding of new employees, which is huge. We hire, hundreds of folks a month. So getting that one process down of onboarding our folks quickly and accurately is going to be huge. And also Susan noted our projects module, that time and labor integration with our projects module is going to revolutionize the way we do our time tracking going forward once we're live with all of this. So we've got quite a busy summer ahead of us in all of those aspects. So you want to talk about EPM, Matt?
Yeah, thanks, Holly. So once we're through all of this and we have a chance to let the dust settle, so to speak, then we can implement the Oracle's enterprise management tools, which include financial cloud close service, right? So that's a more advanced month-end closing tool that has workflows built into it. The planning and budgeting tools, EDMCS, which is data management. Now that can be used not even just within cloud or within Oracle, but as externally applicable to systems outside. Account reconciliation, which allows you to reconcile any account or any source document against any other document, right? So it could be a reconciliation of all of your prepaid expenses, but reconciling that particular account out through what's called ARCS, Account Reconciliation Cloud Service. So all of those pillars and applications are in our footprint in the near future. Go to the next slide, Stuart.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, I think this is so I'll continue on here talking about the global roadmap. It's worth noting just not just what we're implementing, but how far and wide we are implementing it. So we go from all the way from northern Canada all the way down to the southern points of South America over into Europe and APAC. And I think it's worth noting that a lot of our recent acquisitions are in South America, and the cloud is allowing us to bring them into the system, let's say more quickly, whether we decide to just import trial balances, right, for general ledger activity, or we decide, hey, we want to see into their operational system, we can implement Accounting Hub and actually dig into their operational system without doing a full implementation. But ultimately, the goal is to bring them fully into the cloud. So we've defined a standard global template. All countries will use that template, with exceptions where there's localizations, where Oracle's local chart of accounts or local tax rules, things of that nature can help us out and not have to really seek out third party or other products to make those elements of the implementation work. All right. So just to talk a little bit about our project phases and methodology. Our methodology contains 7 phases that provide a flow and cadence for the project. The first 3 phases, plan, discover, and design, are phases that are focused on defining and designing the solution. That's where we call it a block of value proposed. That's where we're seeing everything where you need to pull value from, right? As you get into the final 4 phases, build, acceptance, train, and deploy, that represents, we're preparing our users and system for final release into production, or quote unquote value realized. So all of the heavy lifting that we did in our business process design phase during the plan, discover, and design is now ultimately being realized in our implementation phase. What I want to point out is we do focus in our particular methodology. Perficient owns its own pods. So in order to make this work in a more agile way, we focus early on prototyping and workshops to facilitate the design and solution activities. So you're never in the dark. When you're working with us, you are working with us in an environment that has been built for you to see. So you're not waiting 6 months or a year into the project. It's a matter of just a few days from project kickoff, where you're already able to see and visualize how the product is going to work for you. So with that, I move it to the next slide. And let's talk about our current roadmaps just real quickly one more time to summarize. So in phase 1, we have now finished General Ledger and Accounting Hub, and we have an immediate return on investment. We call that really a quick win. It took a few months to get there. We had some transformation in our chart of accounts. We have Accounting Hub, which links us back to EBS seamlessly, as Susan alluded to before, to eliminate that swivel chair effect or switching applications and having to reconcile system against system. It's all now in one system, all the financial reporting. So the outcome of this is we're able to retire our EBS General Ledger and all of our financial reporting, all of our FSGs. So all that is put to bed. We are 100% financial reporting now in the cloud. Holly, what do you have to say about HCM?
Yeah, phase 2 is like I said, it's our gangbuster. We are going to be very busy this summer. So our in-flight phase 2, it's got everything we've mentioned from the HCM standpoint, as well as our projects module, which again, pretty crucial to our business and our people, our time reporting and our project work. A procurement module, as well as the whole rest of the financials suite. So our aim here is really, we have a very specific EBS footprint at the moment. The plan is to hopefully retire the EBS side, retire our iCIMS recruiting, as well as our Concur for expenses, and get all of those things out of those disparate systems and get everything all connected in the cloud. Key pieces obviously are, core HR, our payroll integration to ADP, our onboarding, which is huge for us. I mean, that you can't get it right when you hire somebody new. You're gonna have some struggles going forward with them. So getting that down and getting it right and seamless right from the start is a huge focus. And then the rest of the employee experience, of course, once people are here, all of the processes, transactions around them, their open enrollments, their comp cycles, all of those things are going to be coming online later this year. So we have a lot ahead of us this summer.
Great, okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Next slide. All right, Stuart, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So as you guys can tell, as we walk you through our project, there's a lot of transformational type opportunities that we're deploying and that all of our customers deploy when they make this migration. And sometimes you will run into opportunities in that area that require a non-Oracle solution. And 2 that we're deploying as part of our project and that we're seeing a lot of our customers deploy center around treasury and tax. So I do want to point out that these are approved vendors of Oracle. They do not compete with anything that Oracle provides out of the box with their ERP platform. In fact, Oracle actually runs Kyriba, for example, in-house themselves. So Kyriba is a treasury technology platform that we're implementing. It's going to provide us with a wide array of different treasury and cash management type functions. Most importantly, it's going to give us pre-built connectivity to our international banks for global positioning, for global cash positioning. And as many of you guys may know, working with on-prem solutions, a lot of times there's a lot of customization here. You have to build custom XML templates and custom interfaces to communicate with your bank. What Kyriba offers you is pre-built templates, integration points to pretty much all of the major banks in the world. So everything's pre-built, everything is very secure. We will be using this connectivity to support cash management processes, cash reconciliation, and to automate our AP payment processing. And their solution is fully certified from a fraud and compliance perspective. So we're seeing a lot of Kyriba platforms being implemented as part of our Oracle Cloud projects. The second one is around tax. As I'm sure you guys know, out of the box tax with Oracle can be difficult because it's really a data challenge. You don't have jurisdictional data, you don't have rate data, you don't have product taxability data. US is a great example. There are so many jurisdictions in the US of city, county, state combinations. Tracking that data, tracking the changes to those jurisdictions, tracking the rate change and the product taxability changes that come along with that is very, very difficult. So for that reason, we are implementing Thomson Reuters OneSource solution internally, and that will be an automated sales and use tax fully integrated back to Oracle Cloud ERP. And then I want to briefly touch on our program, which I mentioned earlier, which we call Speed to Value. This program is really geared towards helping clients evaluate and plan their cloud migration. As you guys can imagine, we have a very large install base of on-premise customers, being in this business for 22 years. Most of them are at least evaluating the cloud right now or have made some sort of stepping stone into the cloud. There's always a level of skepticism or confusion and a lot of questions around how I get there. And so this program really is built around kind of three main points, which is number one, feasibility. So a customer asking, am I a good fit? Is my industry a good fit? Is my business model a good fit with Oracle Cloud? I can tell you that as Oracle has released more and more applications and functionality, we very rarely run into a customer that is not a good fit from a feasibility perspective. The second big question our customers have is what's the return on investment? As I've mentioned, it isn't just about eliminating hardware, infrastructure, support, traditional software maintenance. It's about process improvements, transformation. If I deploy these things, what is the ROI associated with that? And in a lot of cases, we work side by side with our customers to define what that ROI is. And then third, and equally as important, is the deployment roadmap. Most of our customers are too big from a size standpoint and from an application scope standpoint to where they can do a big bang approach. So most of our clients want to phase their implementation, and we take a look at various things. As Matt alluded to earlier, we want a quick win. We want to get something in the cloud quickly to start accelerating and get momentum around an ROI. So we definitely factor that into it. And then obviously we're taking a look at what is the disruption risk associated with the roadmap. So we're looking at deployments by region, by business unit, in some cases by functional area. You may go HCM first or finance and accounting first and have a temporary period of integration back to an on-premise solution. But ultimately we have a roadmap to where we can deploy everything off of on-prem and into the cloud. Deliverables coming out of this program, which is a formal program of ours. Obviously, there's a summary of findings, there's a feasibility study. We're looking very closely at the signature business processes that we can remodel to gain ROI. We're taking a look at how a customer has customized their current environment and what's the purpose of those customizations, how do they map to what Oracle Cloud has to offer out of the box. We do a lot of prototyping and demonstrations in our own environments, which we own here at Perficient on cloud. And then again, building the roadmaps, working with our clients on understanding the recommended Oracle product bill of material, and then also getting heavily involved in risk mitigation plans, and I would also say change management plans. So on that note, I would like to now pass it back to our key leadership for any closing thoughts.
Thanks, Stuart. I'm happy to chime in. So this definitely has been a journey. So as I approach 2 years with Perficient, I'm always in awe of what we do and how we help so many companies around the globe. But what's really cool about this project is now I actually get to see from a customer perspective how we work together and really reap the benefits of the team that we have at Perficient. And also to participate in webinars like this to share our story, right? To help our clients understand the journey from our seats and the challenges and successes that we've had. So we're still in process with HCM. I'm excited to come back and share how that goes, and super excited, like Stuart said earlier, for the day we go live and the employee experience, what that will look like for us. But in the meantime, it's definitely a journey. It's laced with fun, it's laced with discovery, it's laced with a lot of change and definitely challenges. But our team's really engaged, and for that, I think we've all been able to learn a lot internally that we can also share now with our clients as we continue to grow.
And I'll absolutely echo Andrea's statements. It's a journey. It continues to be a journey. It's been a great one so far as we've been able to take a step back and reevaluate some of our key processes and understand, what is holding us back, or what do we need to modify to be more scalable, and remove, duplicity. Yeah, with that, I'll actually turn it back over to Susan Welton, who will lead us through the Q&A portion of the presentation.
Susan and Andrea, thank you so much for your time. As Susan mentioned, now we will begin the Q&A portion of today's event. So you should see a question tab in the right-hand corner of your screen. This is where you actually type in your question for today's presenters. So feel free to do that now if you didn't do that previously, and we'll go ahead and get started. So Holly, you've got the first question here. Jennifer is asking about a move to HCM Cloud. Jennifer says that we're considering a move to HCM Cloud. Is there anything we should look at doing ahead of time to be ready for this transformation?
Definitely. Yeah, there's always things to think about. I would say get through, and Andrea also mentioned discovery. We've had a lot of that throughout this project. And I would say to not wait for the project. I would dig into discovery in terms of reviewing those business processes, being very clear what your roadmap is and what your current state is, how far it may stretch. Sometimes it's further out than you realize, and just have really good clarity around your current state. And then I would say also keep in mind who your leaders on the project are going to be, making sure they feel empowered to make those decisions. There's decisions daily in these projects. And then learning to create some space for those folks to be present in those discussions. They have their day jobs. We struggle with this, in every project, not just this one. And I did as well in my own project. Is I still had to run open enrollment. I still had to do merit cycles, and then I had to sit down and do testing or do design, or we are all cognizant of all of that. It's a big part of these projects, and making sure that we honor that and make room and space for that, because it's hard sometimes, but the future state is our key, is our goal in that experience, and the path to get there.
Thank you, Holly. Appreciate that.
Sure.
We have quite a few questions that are coming in now. I know that we're getting close to the top of the hour, so we might not be able to get to all of them. So I just want to comment at this time, if we don't have an opportunity to answer your question, we will definitely get back to you. So please feel free to keep sending those questions in. We look forward to engaging with you and addressing them. The next one I want to ask here, Stuart, this one is for you. It's a question about Kyriba. The question here is from Bob, and he wants to know, is Kyriba a global solution that covers overseas banks?
Yeah, it's fully global. So they work with the vast majority of banks across the world. They're constantly adding to their library. For us, we obviously work with a large set of banks, being in many countries, and their solution will cover all of our needs. So.
Stuart, we have a couple of people have asked really a question along the same lines, and it's about customizations in the cloud. And I know that you did really touch upon this earlier in the presentation, but can you kind of come back to that a little bit? Because you had said there is some confusion about whether you can customize in the cloud.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's different versions of customization, right? If you kind of use some of the terminology from on-premise solutions, forms personalizations, for example, those are available in the cloud. You can personalize forms based on user needs, based on data restrictions, things of that nature. There's standard functionality, standard abilities to do that with the forms. If you look at integrations, we use a lot of Integration Cloud that Oracle offers as that platform to do integrations with third-party systems. Having said that, there's also a lot of third-party tools, Dell Boomi, for example, on the market, some of our customers tend to use. In terms of like true extensions, we use a lot of PaaS, platform as a service, to build kind of extensions. So it's I would say 95% of the time, when we're working with more upmarket companies with larger footprints, especially on the supply chain side, we run into a need for some sort of level of customization, one of those three buckets. Obviously, ability to extend reporting, just like you do on-prem. It also exists out of the box to be able to create, user develops reports via tools like OTPI and others that are embedded in the solution.
Thank you, Stuart. We have another question here that I think is probably best answered by Matt. And the question is from Karen. She'd like to know, did you document your business processes ahead of time? Matt, can you take that one?
Yeah, so we did do this. Going back to the methodology, that's a great question. Going back to the methodology, that was our first real goal, right? It was to understand what those business processes are. That said, you don't really, when you move into the cloud, you don't really dwell on the current state so much because you're really looking to transform. That said, it is helpful to understand what the change management looks like, right? So if you're going from, completely manual journal approvals, printing out, spreadsheets worth of journal entries, et cetera, to automated journal approvals, that's actually bigger change management than one might suspect. So it's important to know that you do it, but you don't have to dwell on every last aspect of what it is to get a manual journal approval. It's just important to know that you do it and that it's painful, and here's the change, right? So yes, you do, but you spend much more time on the transformation aspect of it than you do on the current state aspect of it, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Matt. Holly, it looks like we have another question here for you. This is from Michelle. She said there was discussion around time entry and mobility. Is time entry part of Oracle HCM capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of options in the way that things can get set up from a time card perspective. There is grid view as well as the mobile facing piece, and that's a lot of what our team is working towards in terms of utilizing both, so they can have both of those experiences, whether they're sitting at their desk or doing their time entry on their phone. So that's one of our solutions that we're working towards, which is exciting. I know Andrea made a big point of the mobile usage and our 9 to 5 being similar to our 5 to 9. And yeah, I did just order dinner last night on my phone. So I know how this goes, and it's so much easier if we can accommodate our lifestyle into the way that we manage our information at work.
Thank you, Holly.
Sure.
Well, we are really at the top of the hour now, so I want to take this opportunity to thank executive leadership. Thank you so much to Paul and Andrea and Susan for your time today to share our own Perficient story. Thank you to Matt Makowski and to Holly Higgins-Smith for your time, as well as Stuart, our moderator. I hope that you have learned a thing or two that you didn't know about Oracle Cloud. I hope the move to the cloud is perhaps not as scary a thought or process, and it's something that you actually are going to consider. And we look forward to helping you move forward in that transformational direction and decision. So with that, thank you for your time today. Please join us again in the future. Have a great day.